I've been asked to just share a couple of things about how I feel about Young Living and Gary Young. So for me, when I came to learn about Young Living, I really feel as if I found my home. And I met Gary on a few occasions, and he was just such a big-hearted fellow. And whenever you spoke with him personally, he would speak with you, despite the fact that there are a lot of people around him. So it's a family-based business Gary and Mary Young started, and we're all a family-based business. I have my family here, you've all got your families, and for me it's just a family business, and I just love that. So I've just written here, it's family owned. There was one man with one vision, and that vision was success on health and wealth and for the planet, for the people, for the animals. And we are all part of that. And our mission is to keep Gary Young's legacy alive. So I think we can all do that, and I think we all need to, we all need to keep that voice going of Gary. So, and from that vision, all members have his benefits. So we just sort of ride that wave, continue to ride that wave, and let's keep that legacy alive.
Yep, I wholeheartedly agree. Yeah, that's something that really sets us apart as Young Living members, I think, and as a company, and really makes us unique. Do you agree? Yeah. So today what we've got for you is some of our members are going to come up and share some wonderful stories with us.
But before we do that, we welcome to the stage Mr. Tai Tolman, the Regional President of Asia Pacific. Come up, Tai, come up and join us.
And we're going to have these guys share a little bit about their memories, their experiences with Gary and the foundation. Pretty much, yeah.
Can I read some of your lines?
Sure.
Next, this morning, we've gathered a panel of members to share with you those stories, hosted by our Regional President, Asia Pacific, Tai Tolman. Welcome to the stage.
Back again. We've got to welcome him, guys.
And with him, can we also bring out our panel, our Crown Diamonds, Linda and Alan Simpson, aka Mum and Dad. Our Diamonds, Kylie and Glenn Bryant. And our Platinum leaders, Chris Lewin and Kim Thomson. Welcome.
What a great way to start our final day by talking to our distinguished panel about Young Living's greatest competitive advantage. Do you know what that is? It's our founder, Gary Young. Because seed to seal, oils, Young Living culture is all thanks to this wonderful man and pioneer. And so now that Gary is no longer with us physically, he is with us in a lot of other ways, it's up to us. One of the things we have as flag bearers of Young Living is to share and to tell stories, right? That's how generations after generations have passed along important messages, culture, and kept those principles and values alive. And so that's how we wanted to start off this last and final session, is to talk with our distinguished panel and have them tell us a little bit more about experiences with Gary, with the farm culture. And hopefully that allows us to not only keep keep all of the values and the things that he's taught us alive, but that inspires many of you to do the same as this panel has done, which is the best way we can know and understand the roots of Young Living is to visit the farms and to see that live and in person. So we wanted to start off with a couple of questions, and our first one is for let's go with Kylie first, right? Or actually Kim, let's go Kim first. Kim.
Let's go.
So let's start with Young Living Foundation. Young Living Foundation, and by the way, Jackie Skinner is here. If you guys didn't have a chance to meet Jackie, head of foundation, right here. So here's some props for foundations. Kim, tell us a little bit about your experience with foundation, something that stood out that's remarkable to you and that is worth sharing for those of us who haven't yet had the opportunity to work directly with the foundation efforts.
All right, so last year, at the end of last year, Jeremy, myself, Chris and Rona were lucky enough to travel to Ecuador and to actually visit the farm. But for me, and I can see Nina Love right in front, and I'll just be drawing strength from you, Nina. For anyone that's visited the academy, it changes your life. You can't go there and come back the same person. It is absolutely life-changing. Young Living put us up in the Hilton in Guayaquil, and every morning we would get up and we would have breakfast in a cafe at the front of the hotel, and there was these same two children every morning out the front of the cafe walking up and down in the traffic selling oranges to the cars when they stopped at the traffic lights. One of them would have been 5 and the little brother was in nappies, so he would have been maybe 2. And we saw those same couple of children every day doing this, and they weren't alone. There were so many children in Guayaquil when we were there, having to sell stuff on the street, and it was really heartbreaking. Then basically Young Living drove us out to the academy every day, or out to the farm and the academy, and we, as a group, got to pass through the doors. Jackie was there as well. And they opened up the doors, and here's all the children lining like in kind of like a guard of honour for us. And at the end of the guard of honour, you can imagine 350 children at this academy, and they're beautiful, beautiful costumes and school uniforms and that kind of stuff. And here's this little girl holding this sign with my name on it. Sorry, I'm going to cry already. She had made this sign and it said my name, and she gave me the most beautiful hug, and she was just so loving, and like you could feel the gratitude coming from her. They then broke us up into little groups and gave us a tour of the school and showed us what the various classes were doing, and we were lucky enough to actually have as our tour guide Kylie's sponsor daughter,
Wow.
Laura is such an amazing young girl. She wants to be a doctor, and I think she's going to do it. Like, she is just such an incredible, strong young woman, and just to see the passion that she has for the school when she was showing us around. So, that was a beautiful day. And even walking away from that day, I know it changed Chris. Like, he then sponsored a child. I used to think that sponsoring was only for the diamonds and those people who had enough money. But it was actually because of Kylie and Glenn and their trip to Ecuador to meet their sponsored child that I decided to sponsor a child. So it was kind of like my why to get to platinum. So I could go to that academy and I could meet the child that I had sponsored. And anyway, the most special part of that whole trip was actually getting to go and visit. Her name's Kimberlin's family. And Kimberlin has 2 sisters, a 16-year-old, Kimberlin is 12, and her youngest sister, Scarlett, is 6. So she's in kindergarten. So I have 2 daughters myself, an 11-year-old and an 8-year-old. Our translator had said to us, when you get out of the tuk-tuk, the family's probably going to be a bit shy. They're probably not going to say very much. The total opposite happened to us. We get out of the tuk-tuk. They don't speak Spanish. We don't speak English. They rush straight up to us and hug us like you've never been hugged before. They've never met this other... even though the other girls are sponsored to go to the academy, they've never met their other sponsor family. So we received that whole gratitude from that family in those embraces. And throughout the whole morning that we got to spend with them, they could not have been more grateful to people like you who sponsor their children to attend that academy. Because otherwise, if it wasn't for people like us and all the others out there that sponsor, then their children wouldn't be at that school. I mean, the mum basically said the 16-year-old definitely, wouldn't have been at that school. She would probably be out having to work. And, I would hate to think that these children would have been the ones selling the oranges on the street. And, we left there with, they made us a chopping board and they gave us gifts, and, they poured their heart into us so that we could come back here and tell all of you that sponsoring a child at the academy, or whether you, donate to the foundation in many other ways, really, really changes lives. And, I bet you thought that you sold essential oils, but you don't. You actually sell life-changing experiences. People might come for the essential oils, but they come because their life changes. So, thank you.
Wonderful, Kim. That's just a wonderful example of the legacy, the lasting legacy that Gary left behind, is that in your work with Young Living, you get the opportunities like this, right? Which is just unheard of in other companies and other industries. I also think if you didn't catch that, that Kim said that her host was actually one of the people that Kylie and Glenn were able to sponsor prior to. So then that host, there's a multi-generational effect. And what was the time frame between when you went, Kylie, and
a year.
and
We
Kim?
went the year
A year.
before, and we sponsored Laura when we went silver. I remember Mary saying, "Money in the good hands of good people doing good work."
Yes.
And when we went silver as a team thing, we thought it would be great to sponsor Laura, and then it really was a drive to get there to meet her. And she's right between our two girls in age, and we promised her we'd go back for her graduation and take the whole family. So
Amazing. Thank you. And then you're able to indirectly kind of keep tabs, or they're able to keep tabs on you as well, right? So you can see what happens and comes thereafter. Is that correct?
Yeah, they send us letters every month, so with pictures and things like that, and it's really, really beautiful to read the letters and see, what she's learning at school. And, I don't know if we're allowed to say the amount of money but we pay, but it comes out of my commission, and for the small amount of money that I actually pay each month to the foundation to sponsor her for all her meals at school, her school uniform, it's amazing. It's such a gift, so...
What a treasure. Thank you, Kim. Wonderful. Go ahead, Kylie.
we can actually, now the foundation, it's changed that we continue to, the foundation looks after them into university as well. So Laura wanting to be a doctor is now very, very achievable for her, where maybe that wouldn't have been an option if it stopped at the end of high school. So
Wonderful. Fantastic. Thank you again. So the next question from the audience is for Kylie. And the question is, was there a point when you truly realized what makes Glenn so special and unique? Was
Glenn-
there an aha moment?
He's extremely special, as you know.
Yes, special.
Special.
Okay, yes, but enough said. No, remove Glenn part and Young Living. What makes Young Living so special? What was your aha moment with Young Living?
I suppose there's been so many aha moments, but when it comes to the quality and how we are so different, I'm a horticulturist, so farms are my thing. I love the farms. I love getting my hands in the dirt, and being part of that experience is so special. And it's hard to have a favourite farm. I think it's the Platinum Ecuador, due to the school. But when I went on Gold Retreat, I was with Kim as well, and went to Gold Retreat. We took a day trip to Idaho to go to the Highlands Flats farm. And when we got there, there was no harvesting going on. They were actually servicing and maintaining equipment at the time. And when we asked, how come there's no distilling or harvesting, they said the weather, it's such a beautiful spring day when we were there. And I was saying, we don't harvest now because to get the best quality oils, we have to do that in the freezing temperatures, because that's when all the best constituents and everything are there. And I thought, wow, so when you get a bottle from, somewhere else, and it says that it's 100% pure, or whatever it may say on the bottle, when was it harvested? Under what circumstances? How long did they distill it for? And all those little things make such a difference. So the label doesn't tell you all that. You need to know about the company. You need to know about how particular Gary was in all those little things. And as Mike spoke about yesterday, Dr. Mike, about the 90 levels of testing, the best is nothing else is acceptable.
Wonderful, yes. And as Kylie mentions, it's whatever the products, do you have the opportunity to be able to reverse engineer and go back and look at the entire process, starting with the source, farms, where they came from? And just curious to know, how many here in this room have been to a Young Living farm? Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. That's credit to Australia and New Zealand. Give yourselves a big round of applause. Thank you for being a part of that experience. The next question we have for Glenn from the audience.
Look out.
Glenn, they understand there was a beach rugby state tournament earlier this morning, right? And you led the New South Wales team. Danny had the misfortune of captaining the Yankee Doodle Dandy team with myself and Wayne Moorhead.
Poor lad.
Yes, you had a couple of tries, beautiful tries. One was a good 10-meter run. Towards the end, a little showboat kicked in, you made a dive, and replays showed you actually knocked the ball on from the showboating. Question,
Yes.
is that Young Living culture?
Absolutely. I think the Young Living culture comes out with the efficacy of the product and that, and to actually watch the replay properly, because they've actually seen that the grounding was full-handed to the ground and with pretty stylish too, I may add. So
Thank goodness
I
for
was doing that for our American friends because
Yes,
the touchdowns are a bit different over there, so I was trying to integrate them
It
into.
was kind of a hybrid touchdown celebration. Yes, yeah, I get it.
Well, that's right.
I know
interrelational
it
cultures.
hurt Wayne's feelings. It hurt Wayne's feelings. That's why he's not here this morning right now. We'll get him back later. But great display of rugby sportsmanship earlier this morning over in Burbank. But Glenn, for you, Glenn, just keeping on the track of farms, tell us what your favorite farm experience was and why.
They're actually all fantastic. I don't think you do like the service trip. Definitely don't come back the same person. But just the farms, everyone you come back, they're all such a fantastic experience. So one of the highlights for me was probably Kona, Hawaii, when we went over there. And it was just amazing. You just see all how the stewardship of the earth really kicks in and how much the farmers want to be farmers at the end of the day. But actually when you put meaning, purpose, and a sustainable living behind that, it actually goes to a new level. And these guys, farmers, they're pretty rough. They're rough as guts looking, but they get in, they're really salt of the earth. And just amazing. And the ones at Kona are just really humble, great men. But when you read behind them, they're all botanists. They're all highly educated men, and they just love giving back to the earth because they're very connected to it. And what they're doing there is that all the ground they're taking back used to be pasteurised. So it's actually been taken over by the Western. But they're actually reforestating it with the actual native Hawaiian sandalwood. And with the Hawaiian sandalwood, you also need a host tree as well. So they've got double the effort. But to see the terrain these guys are working with, it's all volcanic rock. And when you go, oh, where's the farm? You look out there, all it is bush. And it's going, oh, really? And then they have to go out in that bush. They have to harvest the material, get it back through the bush as well, and then they distill it. And they just do it with such passion as well. And when they're planting, we did a little planting as you do at every farm. So you get your hands in the dirt. There's no free rides here. There's all hands on, get into it. And they do a little prayer. And the prayer actually says, I live, you live, we live. And they say that as they plant every tree. So the meaning and the intention not only behind the seed, but behind the plant going into the ground, and to actually give it that energy, the love for it to grow, because that's what makes this human place a great place, is amazing. And you can actually feel that in the product. And to actually be behind it and witness it is amazing. But every farmer has that passion, and yeah, it is fantastic and really special.
Wonderful, yes. And you're right, it's neat to see, because I think many of you have watched some of the seed-to-seed videos with Gary, right? And you remember some of the requirements that he has as far as the workers who work with the seeds, right? That they must have love in their heart, right? That's a requirement. And to see that there's a farm, a partner farm, that already has that same level of devotion and spirituality, like Glenn said before, that they plant every tree, they say this Hawaiian prayer and this chant, which essentially says that as you live, so too do I. And as these plants live, so too does that allow their brothers and sisters, us humans, to be able to live and subsist together. And in addition to that, I think you've heard the farmers there say many times, if it wasn't for Young Living distributors buying Royal Hawaiian sandalwood worldwide, not only would they not have opportunities as farmers to subsist, but there's no opportunity for this reforestation. So because of Young Living and Young Living distributors and education worldwide with Royal Hawaiian sandalwood, we are directly influencing and helping to reforest Hawaii with sandalwood, Royal Hawaiian sandalwood. So amazing. Thank you, Glenn. Chris, similarly, you've had a chance to visit farms and with Gary himself. Tell us a little bit about that, Gary plus farms.
I didn't actually get to go to the farms with Gary, but I met Gary a number of times. But there's a little story I want to tell you about from Ecuador that brought tears to our eyes because, when Gary headed off just after 2004, because I was at the Grand Convention there and there was 500 people at the Grand Convention. It's very uncompliant. It was fantastic. But he went off to Ecuador not long after that, And so there was a story. And when we went to the farm last year, it just touched your heart to see everything that he envisioned to be there. And we're wandering around the distillery, and we went down to where they do the ylang-ylang. And ylang-ylang is very different to everything else you see. They've got these very small distilleries. There's like 16 of them in this room. And there was a man in there looking after him, and his name was Eugene. And he was actually the head distiller there. And I said, so we asked Eugene, how did he come to be there being the distiller in Ecuador? And he says, it's a very interesting story. And he says, many, many years ago, Gary came down here and he was looking to hire people. And I was living in Peru with my wife and 2 children, and I come over because someone told me to meet this man. And so Gary was interviewing him, and he started talking to him about, what he wanted. Had he ever done distilling? He said no. And so he thought he was doing okay. Then Gary said, and where's your family? And he said, well, my wife and children are in Peru, but I'm happy to be here. And Gary looked at him and says, well, that's no good. You've got to have family. So he thought that was the end of it. But Gary, being who he is and running from his heart, reached into his pocket, pulled out his car keys, stuck them in his hand and said, you go get your family. Whoa. Who does that? And then not only that, he brought his 2 children there, and they also went into the academy. His wife had a job there. Gary built them a house on the farm, and they had another child who also went through the academy. So, this is a man this is a backstory of Gary, and he did this everywhere. We always think of him about this pioneer, but he touched people at their hearts. He trusted people. He loved people. And I'm here today because of Gary, and I'm eternally thankful for what that man has done for me, and as many other people have done that as well. But how do you talk about such a legend?
Wonderful, thank you. And I think, Chris, you said it best. It's how do we talk about it? We exemplify those same qualities that he's shown, right? Servant leadership. That's not only how Young Living came to be, that's a principle for success in our businesses as well. So wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. All right, Alan, next question for you. Yes. Uh-oh. Do you have a temperature as well?
I've just come back from Hong Kong.
Yeah, can we get a health screening? An immediate health screening? Oh boy. Yeah.
Sorry, go on. Yeah.
Okay. So, Alan, I know personally how many times Gary would pick up the phone and call Alan and his family. He and Linda and Elena would, on the fly, head out to help Gary with wherever the foundation works were taking place, particularly here on this side of the planet in Tibet. And I heard Gary personally mention how when he was going through his list of names for people he could call, Alan was always at the top of the list. So, and having spent so much time in foundation work and efforts, what are some of the hidden gems stories?
Every time I went to, when Gary asked us to go to the original one in Yasa, that was in 2015, after the earthquake, which destroyed a lot of Yasa, the epicenter. And Gary rings and he says, do you want to go? Would you be on a team? And straight away, Linda always says, go. Because I always want to ask her. She says, go. Okay, yes, I will go. And we had to cancel all sorts of stuff, but that was the first trip. So I ended up over there and had an amazing time. But then it's so tough. It's so hard. The government is so restrictive. They take everything. And it's a difficult place to get around. The roads are really, like, if you think of a bad road, it's like 4-wheel drive weekend for the boys. Do that for 100 hours and you certainly get worn out bones. You get worn out. I said to this guy who came with us on the first trip, he's Joe, he's from the army, tough dude. Like he's been trained with the in the army. He was it Green Beret? Or one of those guys, anyway. On the way to there, I was actually telling people it was actually kidney bleeding. It was a kidney bleeding trip, and everyone's laughing at me back home. We get there, and this tough dude, he was peeing blood. He did have a kidney bleeding experience, literally. That's how bad the roads are. Right? This goes on for hours and hours and hours and hours. So after I finished the first tour over there, we called it the Dream Team. I said, that's it, I'm not going back. I love the people, but I'm not going back. And then next year, it happened again. Would you go? And my heart pleaded for the people. I knew this was going to happen, right? Because the people there are unbelievable. Love the people. Hate the government. Love the people. Love the opportunity we have to throw bricks around and mix mud. Then the next year happened again. I said, I'm not going back. Each time I had an amazing story, I'm not going back. And again, I went back. This happened for 5 darn years. I keep going back. What the heck is going on in my brain? Same thing. Kidney bleeding roads, death-defying trips, blind corners, travelling around roads. You expect a car to be on your side of the road when you go around a blind hairpin bend. You expect it, and you're ready for it. You put your brakes on, and then the car just straight in. And then we do the same thing. Like, this is really crazy living, but they're amazing at missing things. They miss everybody, and you think you're going to die at every trip. So this is why I'm thinking, okay, I'm not going back. But Kathmandu is an amazing place. And the driving out there every time. But anyway, Hector, he's the guy that is the mastermind behind the building out there, where we mix mud, we throw bricks, we physically are on the ground working. Young Living's Foundation is the only one in Nepal that has bricks and mortar on the ground and machinery that are physically building. There's lots of different foundations over there, but we were told this from the head of that system that looks after the foundations. They came to see us and said, we just want to thank you so much. You're the only ones that put bricks on the ground and build structure. Everyone else is... This was Gary's vision. His vision goes even further for Yazo, which I can't tell you. And I just hope it happens. No, I can't. I can't. No, I can't. I've got to leave that for Mike and a few others to deal with, and for Jackie to try and work out. But there's a lot of stuff happening that has happened over there. And Hector, he's the building guy. He's the contractor from Mexico. He's spent years away from his family. He's a big dude. He's got tats on him. He's a Mexican, mixes with the rough guys. He rides a Harley. Yeah, go Harley. And he leaves his family for months in the year to go over there. And when we're leaving there last time, he said, you know, there's this old lady there. She's 86, and she gums her food for as long as he can remember, because we live in the compound that's been given to us by the government as long as we rebuild the whole top level and make it all nice before we leave. Thank you, government. Well, they give their people nothing, but we do everything for their government. And anyway, he says, wouldn't it be nice if we could somehow get this lady some teeth? And we're going, what an awesome idea. So we walk up the street, all of us go for a walk. And by the way, thank you to the fun team guys, because most of us were all from the fun team that came. There's a couple here. Maria was here. Put your hand up if you're with us on that trip. Matt, where are you, Matt? And who else was Gail? Anyway, there's 3 of us from this room that were there. Gail over there. So it was an awesome trip, amazing trip. Now, when we're leaving there, he said, would we get some teeth for this lady? So we walk up the road, we find this denture clinic. Walk in the denture clinic and we asked them, they said, yeah, how much? Worked out about 800 Australian dollars. So we went back to the team and we said, before we leave, Hector's heart wants to make sure this lady has teeth. So all the money chipped in, and this lady's now getting teeth fitted. She's 86. She hasn't had teeth for probably as long as we can remember, but her mouth's been fitted out for new teeth now. So now that we've left there, this lady, because nothing to do with the foundation, but we were there because of the foundation, but just the hearts of the people that were there said, and Hector, which is part of the foundation, said, this is what he wants to do, and it's happened. So this lady's got teeth.
Wonderful.
And we also donated a motorbike for Hector to get around to the building sites. So there's a fun team motorbike over there. So people power is incredible. The people over there are so respective. They got big pictures of Gary up in Yaza, and it's not a worship, but it's a respectfulness to Gary. Every single person, when they hear about the foundation, anywhere in Nepal that know what we've done, they just clap, they cheer, they lay us with the flowers. It's constant. We opened a centre over there for women who were being abused. Young Living built the centre for the abused women, and now they're living in it. They've got a refuge. So, the foundation is mind-blowing what they're doing. So I think you can get the picture of how incredible what we're doing is. And every single cent goes to bricks on the ground. And we've got machinery over there. Gary bought this machinery personally with his own money. And there's still machinery there that we're going to sell, and we hope to give the money back to Mary. And I know what Mary's going to do with that money. She's going to give it straight back to the foundation. So that's a bit of a story.
Wonderful. Thank you, Alan. Thank you for being a flag bearer and making this a family affair. So final question, Linda. So for those who haven't had the chance and wouldn't have the chance to meet Gary personally, now it's up to us as emissaries to share his stories. What would you share with this audience, those who haven't had a chance or didn't get the chance to meet with Gary?
Well, I'm going to make this short. Not that it's insignificant, but it's major in the red. But everything that everybody has shared today has been a big experience for not just us, but for lots of people in Young Living, because Young Living has given us all a big opportunity to do that. And I've gone and seen my tree after I did the blessing. Guess what? It was still alive, and I was excited with that. That means I'm still alive, right? We're all sharing. We donated with the orphanage when we first started and they first brought it out. We went straight there and got ourselves the children that we actually were funding, and it was amazing, as you said, to get those letters. And I love the concept of what you said, Chris, too, with what you were sharing of Gary's heart and how he always gave to people, even if it hurt. But the thing that really I remember Gary for the most is the fun Gary. Like, I know he's done all these really serious things and you go, man, this guy should have been given a Nobel Prize for what he did. But when I remember being at the balsam fir harvest and it was freezing snow, and I asked the same question to him, why now when it's minus 20 degrees? And he said, well, that's when we're going to get the best oil for everybody. And so we stuck it out there with minus 20 degrees. But the biggest part is I went out one day and here he is in the snow. I managed to catch it, rumbling with this guy and having the biggest ball of his life. And not only that, but giving us little pranks every so often. So he'd come out and he'd done something really cheeky to you that you couldn't help by laughing. So I really loved that side of Gary, that yes, he was a humanitarian. Yes, he was an innovator and he looked in the future, but he was really down-to-earth person who just had fun as well, and he was doing the best that he could do on this planet for God's children all over the world that were actually, I was going to do this.
Think of me naked.
Yeah, so the fun Gary is the one I remember the most.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Linda. The fun, Gary Fun Factor, right? Yes, part of the fun team. Well, again, thank you. A round of applause for all of our panelists here this morning. Thank you for helping to start this final day with this wonderful reminder, in which now becomes our opportunity and our charge, right, is to share Gary, to share. And we have that opportunity to do that each time we share an oil. We have the opportunity as we engage in the foundation, his wonderful legacy. And if you look around this room, everyone is here because of the wonderful principles and values that Gary instilled in this company, which is people helping other people, inside and outside of Young Living. So thank you very much to our guest panelists again. Appreciate you. And thank you. We'll get started.